English translation. 310th contact, Sunday, 26th August, 2001, 22:40 hours.
Hello, nice to see you, Sudor.
I am just coming to greet you briefly and inform you that we are going to be in the center area and relaxing a bit. This is Zenobia.
I am pleased to be able to greet you.
Of course I am also happy. But I know you. You have been with Ptah and me in Vienna lately. Your name means she is like a queen. I still remember that well. You told me that yourself. You are from Era.
That is so, yes. It is strange that you say that. Sudor also knows that we already know each other.
Pardon me, I had not thought of it because my mind had wandered off.
I reacted exactly to Sudor's words. Somewhat unintelligent of me. On the other hand, I also wanted to make it clear that we already know each other, because I also intend to record this conversation when you transmit it to me. And because the human beings who will then read these notes do not know that the two of us already know each other, I wanted to clarify this for this purpose.
I understand.
May I ask you one more question, Sudor? I think your nod means yes. So then, at 21:33 hours, I observed a larger luminous object in the night sky in a northwesterly direction for more than 5 minutes. Afterwards, the object moved away towards the north, where it remained hovering high above or behind the ridge of the hill for a long time. That was at 21:40 HRs, just as Freddy drove up in his car and said that he had also seen the same light object that I had seen when driving up from Wheela. I think it could have been your flying apparatus, your beam ship, because it was exactly the shape of your bucket. Freddy and I watched the luminous object for a long time before he got his camera and started taking photos at 21:58 Orchers. I hope that the photos will turn out well. At about 22:00 hours, Bernadette joined us, and a minute later, also Silvano, both of whom also observed the luminous object, which disappeared twice briefly as an aircraft approached, but then shone brightly again. Shortly afterwards, a second luminous object joined it on the left, after which we were able to observe the two lights about the size of a football, until 10:07 HRs, that is to say for a good 5 minutes. Then first the ship on the left disappeared, and then also the other one, which had been visible since 21:33 hours, with 2 or 3 short interruptions.
The first flying apparatus you observed was mine. The second one belongs to Zenobia.
A bright, luminous object by Freddy Croft, Switzerland.
It was on Sunday, the 26th of August, 2001, when I drove with Atlant Bieri to Winterthur to bring him to the train station, as he had to return from his vacation to the military barracks in Langenthal, where he was assigned to the lieutenant school. Afterwards, I made my way back home. It was already night and a few minutes after 21:30 hours when I drove up to Schmidruti and saw a large light object in the sky somewhere above the Schmidruti area. It was too big for a star, but I did not know what it could be. Even for a big star, the light object was too bright and radiated much too strongly, so I wondered if it could be a radiating ship. When I arrived at the center's parking lot at 21:40 Hertz, I saw Billy coming from the courtyard fountain lamp to the parking lot and said that I had just missed something, because he had already been observing a beam ship of elliptical shape for a few minutes, hovering high above the area west of the center for several minutes. The ship was very brightly lit in a white-yellowish color, but disappeared to the north just as I approached. Looking to see if I could still see the object, I explained to Billy that I had also seen the object when I drove home from the valley. After that, we went to the courtyard fountain lamp and searched the dark horizon together. And in fact, it might have been 5 minutes ago, the luminous object appeared again above the dark hills in northern direction, and we observed it stay in the same place for about 10 minutes. So it was 21:58 HRs before I fetched my camera with the 500 telelens and the tripod at Billy's request and started taking pictures. Bernadette joined me, and a few moments later Silvano, so we continued to observe the light object together, which seemed to be slowly approaching for a few minutes and which, according to our observation, was elliptical, even if it was not easy to detect at a long distance. Several minutes of observation passed, during which time I could take several pictures. Then suddenly another object on the left-hand side joined the picture, before suddenly flashing airplanes from left and right and from the distance emerged, whereupon the two luminous objects suddenly disappeared, as if they had dissolved into nothing. This was exactly at 22:07 HRs, so we could observe the first object for about 30 minutes and the second object for about 5 minutes.
And you just show yourselves unshielded.
No, we do not, because each time there is only one viewing angle open to your center.
Aha! And what about the fact that on the 5th of June, a resident of Perg, whose name I am unfortunately not allowed to mention because I promised him, was obviously able to photograph a ship or your flying apparatus? He told me that he had set up his photo tripod on the path above the rear canopy and was able to capture a ship on film.
I know this because when I flew here with Ta, it was Tuesday, the 5th of June, at 050 HRS, we located the man, naturally also analyzing his senses, and found that he was honestly interested in seeing and photographing one of our flying apparatuses. Although he was in doubt as to whether our existence was real, he behaved in his mind in such a wise that he considered the possibility of our presence. So Ta and I advised that we give him an opportunity for one or more photo shoots, which we did. But why should you not mention his name? Why did you make such a promise to him?
He is afraid of being called a Perg UFO nutcase or Schmidrudi UFO nutcase, and that he will fall out with his family, especially his wife. Because of her religiousness, she is not good at talking about me and my story. But also not about UFOs, etc., which are nothing but satanic things, and are personally directed by the Prince of Hell to prepare souls for hell.
What I have to say by a guy from Perg.
What I have to say is this. Ever since Billy Meyer has been living in Hinterschmidrudi, and it was talked about him that he is supposed to have connections to UFOs or their personnel. I doubted his sanity from the very beginning, but I also thought he was a very cunning guy who leads people around on a fool's rope and makes money out of it. Attempting to prove this to myself, but not in order to go public with my findings, I scouted out in my spare time, often spending many hours observing the Hinterschmidrudi area, both by day and by night. Sometimes I saw strange light phenomena that disappeared as suddenly as they appeared, but I could never see anything clearly. Residing in Perg, I know the surroundings of Hinterschmidrudi very well, so I know how to hide everywhere, and so I could do my observations unobserved for years. But this did not lead to any success worth mentioning, except that I saw the strange light phenomena above the Hinterschmidrudi, or otherwise in the area of the Perg. But I could not talk about this with anyone, not even with my family, who find stories about UFOs and extraterrestrials ridiculous, as it was likewise for me until recently. But my attitude changed on Tuesday at about 0050 HRs, because there I saw a strong light coming from the west, from the Boule, which floated towards Hinterschmidruti and slowly grew bigger. There was no sound to be heard. I did not want to miss this, and took some pictures with my photo camera. I had bought the device especially for this purpose, so that I could take a picture of a UFO if I should see one. And since there was a story going around that Billy Meyer deals with UFOs, etc., the obvious thing to do was to look around the Hinterschmidruti area at any time of the day or night, even if I thought it was all just a big hoax. Nevertheless, I was not sure why I wanted to see what was behind it. So for 4 years I was often in the area of the Hinterschmidruti, and there it happened that I saw the light object flying silently towards me, just on Tuesday, the 5th of June 2001, at 50 Sturs. I had placed my camera on the tripod so that I would not shake a picture when I had the chance to take one. And that was a good thing in that dark night, because not only my hands were shaking, but my whole body was. Nervously, I held the release cable and snapped different pictures as the object came closer, where I could even see contours and recognize that it was a disc-shaped object that radiated very strongly. Somehow it looked as if 2 discs were put on top of each other with the inside on top. This was my first observation, which was to be followed by a second one on the 20th of August 2001 at 1550 HRs. High above the Hinterschmidruti, I observed an object which was approaching and which I also could photograph twice with the telephoto lens of my photo camera, but this time without a tripod because I did not have it with me. Nevertheless, the pictures turned out quite well.
The ship of Sudor taken on 5.6. 2001 at 0050 hours by a man from Perg who does not want to be named. The hilly landscape around Schmidruti is called Perg by the locals, hence the pseudonym of the photographer.
I do not want to reveal my name and the exact place where I live, because I cannot afford to be called a UFO nutcase, which I cannot do to my family, and especially to my wife, because she is very hostile to Billy Meyer, and what is said about him according to the UFOs. In the meantime, I myself have met Billy Meyer personally, and have gotten a completely different impression of him than I had before. He struck me as a very decent man, who is obviously also very educated and has a knowledge that astonished me. He also told me about his encounters with the extraterrestrials, and what he explained to me seems very plausible and true to me. And he does not make any fuss about himself, which impresses me very much when I think that his encounters with humans from other worlds are extraordinary. He is a man who is quite different from what is spoken about him, and I feel honored that I could get to know him and correct my opinion about him and his actions. I am especially pleased that I was able to experience and learn something in my older years that brought me many new and significant things. I would never have thought that I would still have such an experience as a person from Perg, and that this is the case. I am grateful to Mr. Meyer for that, which is why I also allow him to use my pictures of the UFOs as he thinks it is good. Only my name and my place of residence shall not be mentioned. Now I know what is really true about the UFOs and Billy Meyer's story.
That is not to be understood because that does not correspond to the truth.
Of course, But so are the humans who are sectarian and subservient to sects and religions.
Enobia has never dealt with these earthly concerns because she is still in her education and will only be taught these things in a few months' time.
Aha, I see. May I ask about your age then, Enobia? Surely you are not hiding behind a secret about that, are you?
Why should I?
Haha, that is just so common with the women here on the earth who think they should hide their age and appear younger than they really are.
Getting older is a matter of honor because more knowledge and wisdom and deeper love are acquired. Well, I am 93 years old.
It is nice to be so young. Compared to you and Sudor, I am a relatively old geezer. Young humans on the earth call people at my age grufti, old geezer. And from next February, when I turn 65, they will probably call me a composti.
What is a grafty and what is a composti? I know, therefore the words you mentioned originate from it as an alteration. But what do they mean?
Right. The words are extensions of the terms grave and compost. The meaning is that grufti is called an elderly person who actually no longer provides any services and is retired. Composti, on the other hand, means that the elderly or old person is on their way to the pit, that is, they are on their way to die soon. You can understand this in a similar way. Of course, there are other possible explanations for this for the youth.
Somewhat strange and macabre, I think, but somehow also humorous.
I agree, but now we should go outside, Enobia. So let us go.
That is how it works. Goodbye. If you stay longer in the area, watch out, because at midnight the night watch comes.
We know that. Goodbye.
We will meet again. See you then, goodbye.